Hi, my name is Dan Stauft. This is Craig Langhals. You're going to wonder why there's two people here for a 15-minute presentation, and you'll understand it. Because to do this effectively, you need data, plus you need process. So we're going to talk a little bit about data, a little bit about our process, and a little bit about what the results have been over our journey. So Craig joined Sugarcreek 7 years ago after a career with big food companies like Conagra. I joined Sugarcreek 6 years ago after 21 years in automotive. So who Sugarcreek is we're the biggest private label bacon manufacturer in the United States. We make a lot of bacon. We're the biggest turkey bacon manufacturer. We're the biggest bacon topping manufacturer. If you like bacon, you like us. It's 52 years old, well, 53 years old now. Privately held, it's actually owned by one guy. He's a happy guy because we did $700 million in revenue last year. Now, the important thing is this. We've grown almost 40% in 5 years. For a 52-year-old company to grow 40% in 5 years is pretty impressive. You need to make changes, right? We're estimated to grow another 20% within the next 2 years. Our objective is to hit $1 billion. We got 2,500 employees across 12 locations, 6 of which are manufacturing sites. The first 2 in Ohio, we don't do bacon. They're primarily warehouses and assembly. We've got 3 bacon plants in Ohio, Kansas, and Ohio. And then we built a plant in Cambridge City, Indiana 3 years ago. It's our biggest plant. We can make virtually any pre-cooked protein. We can fry it, cook it, sous vide. We're the biggest sous vide manufacturer in the United States. That plant 2 years ago won Food Engineering's Plant of the Year because of the technology that was put in. So here's the journey of Sugarcreek before they hired us. And we're going to say that we changed everything, though that's not the case. They managed in the rearview mirror, which meant you're driving 100 miles an hour down the highway, trying to avoid things in front of you, but you're looking in the rearview mirror. So everything was manual. You didn't know what happened until the next day or maybe the next week or sometimes the next month. So in 2015, we decided to start playing with Scada Systems and our Scada Systems ignition. We put it in, we did a proof of concept on 1 plant, 1 department. And we proved out that we could get the data we needed in real time to make the right decisions. In 2016, we rolled it out to another plant. 2017, we did our first continuous improvement project. And at the time, Craig worked in ops at the plant that we did the CI project, and I worked in engineering. We took 1 packaging line, very, very simple, and we looked at optimizing weights, optimizing downtime reduction, getting people engaged, and we proved it out, we think. So in 2018, they actually created a corporate continuous improvement team. We went across 2 plants and we looked at 12 lines and we tried to optimize them, again, based on the data. We looked at 7 packaging lines, tried to optimize them, looking at the data. And at that point, the light bulb went off to our corporation that said, hey, maybe these guys have something. Maybe there's some credence to what we're doing. So they started the Sugarcreek Performance System. So now I report to our CIO. We've got a dedicated OT group that's in parallel to our I2 group. Craig reports to our COO. So we're tied at the hip, but we're also tied directly to operations and directly to IT. Excuse me? You two have the same incentives. The same incentives? Yeah, same incentive. No, I make more than he does. He probably makes more than I do. Hell, I don't know. Yeah, we have the same incentives. It's to kick ass and take names. And you'll see this because my job is to create tools that operations can effectively use. His job is to use a hammer to make operations use the tools. Does that make sense? So y'all know that data is the most important thing in continuous improvement. If you don't have data, you can't tell if you're improving or if you're not improving. So everything needs to be grounded in accurate data. Back in the old days, you'd have guys with clipboards, trying to log, what's going on in a line. That doesn't work. It works for the big stops, and everybody thinks the big stops are the big problem, but in my experience, the micro stops are what kill you. And what we've found, the micro stops are what kill you. So then you had whiteboards, right? So you put a whiteboard at the end of the line where every hour you'd have a supervisor go up and log what their problems were. Yeah, those were wrong too. So then you started looking at calculations. So our attack time is supposed to be 60 seconds for this widget. It took us 72 seconds to make the widget, so they'd actually calculate the downtime, but they still didn't know where the downtime came from, right? So then you get to data collection systems. So we decided that we're going to go crazy with data collection systems. So we created Ignition. Well, we didn't create Ignition. Travis created Ignition, but we implemented Ignition. So we've got Ignition in all our plants now. That's a really busy thing, but we're talking of 14 databases. At any given time, we've got about 100 clients open. We've got mobile. We've got guys on the floor with Google tablets. We've got PCs. We've got huge monitors in the plant. And we're monitoring a lot of stuff. What we care about is the MES lines up there. The 2 plants in yellow are legacy plants. We're not fully implemented, but we're pretty much implemented. So we connected everything, and we're like, this is going to be perfect, right? We created these dashboards. This is a dashboard from a bacon cook line. Those are 6 microwave lines. Basically tells you everything as a manager you should need to know, right? And then we empowered the people. So when you empower the people, they're going to make great decisions, and they're going to make all the great changes, and you don't have to help them. Craig wasn't here yet. So we gathered the data in real time. We've got guys on the floor with Chrome pads that are logging every time a machine goes down, they're logging the reasons. So they're selecting from a pre-selected list of downtime reasons. They're not free-form text. We need to be able to bucket everything together, right? So in this instance, this shows kind of the MES. We had 29 minutes of downtime. They could come and they could select what created the downtime. So our thought was, if we give the managers the data, the managers will react to the data and fix the problems. So we gave them real-time metrics where you're at in the current shift. We gave them interactive Paretos where you could say, hey, what's our biggest problem? Drill down and figure out what the problem is. Again, we're giving them the data. They're supposed to react to the data, right? Yeah, so this is the result. And that's an OEE chart that shows that, yeah, we didn't get any better. We knew we didn't get any better. That's a good thing, right? That's the data. But we didn't get any better. So just providing the data didn't help anything. So data's not enough.
You clicking?
I'm clicking.
Got it.
Up. Is this thing on?
This thing on? Right, so data is not enough, and that's where I come in. So as Dan mentioned, I've worked at a lot of different, 2 large food manufacturing companies, and have seen performance systems in every one of those, and seen one successful and seen one not successful. So what we wanted to do is develop a performance system for Sugarcreek. And what we decided to do was take all of our knowledge from all of our previous, some successful, some unsuccessful performance systems, and develop our own for Sugarcreek. So success starts when your actions become greater than your excuses. So the first thing we thought we needed to do for a performance system is identify the people in the organization that were abundant thinkers, people that didn't come up with excuses but came up with solutions. So we wanted to train some of the managers on these, and then also identify the people in the organization that were abundant thinkers. So the rest of it.
And what John said is we can either change the culture or we can change the manager. Just to give you an idea of the support we had. And we've changed a couple managers.
So zero-based analysis is something I'm very familiar with. It's how we like to look at things. Lost waterfalls I've used in other performance systems that I've utilized, and I love it. PDCA, so it's simple tools to solve problems. And what we want to do is integrate ignition in all of these tools, and we're going to continue to develop more. But ignition is the cornerstone of every one of these that we're going to get into. Opportunity radar mapping. Once we get stagnant on our trending and we're not making improvements like we want to with the day-to-day activity, we have to make big step changes. So as we identify the problematic areas, we're going to utilize this toolbox to make those next step changes. And then eventually, process control and optimization, which is light years away in certain areas, but it's something that we can go halfway on now, but we will need to dig into further in the future.
So we've implemented the first 4 of those 6 pretty much fully. The last 2 we're working on. Again, this performance system was created literally last year. So in a company of 2,500 people, it takes a little while to move the boat. So we're gradually moving the boat.
So zero-based analysis is important because in our industry, plant managers negotiate with corporate, and if they stunk it up on a line the previous year, they all say, oh my God, we had all these problems, so we want to negotiate a weaker BOM standard. And sometimes they win and sometimes they lose. So I had a different graph, but I can go through this one. So for instance, if you ran line A and you really stunk it up and you were at 40% OE standard, and you negotiated with the plant, with the corporate and ownership, and they said, okay, we'll give you a 40% so you can, and then hopefully you can improve. Line B, you ran at 50%, and they locked you in at 50%. Line C, you crushed it, and you averaged 65%, so they said, guess what, you're locked in at 65%. So after the first quarter, we review if we're making or losing money, and on line A, we actually hit like a 42%. So it shows we made $1,000 every week. On line B, we hit 50%, which was our BOM standard, and we're flat. On line C, we crushed it and ran a 64%, but it shows we lost $1,000 a week. So in the old Sugarcreek, we all go running to line C because that's where we're losing money. You guys are hemorrhaging money, you gotta go fix the problems. Well, there's 60% opportunity on line A and we're ignoring it. And there's 50% opportunity on line B and we're ignoring it. And we're all running to line C to try to get 2 more percent, which is actually the most difficult to get. So zero-based analysis is important. We want to flip the chart over and we want to go after the 60%, the 50%, and the 40%.
This was a game changer for us because we were all based on BOMs. Everything was, did you make your standard? Well, our standard was set by sales and engineering, and they didn't know what our potential was because we never really measured our potential. So we went back to the beginning and said, okay, how many watts does it take to cook a pound of bacon? How many watts on each line do we have? And we said, this is, if everything runs perfect, this is how many pounds per hour we should get. And we set that for our standard. And our plant managers didn't like that very much because it was way above what the BOMs were. But as you'll see, we were right and they were wrong.
So lost waterfalls. The reason lost waterfalls are important to me is when you have multiple plants and you're trying to implement a performance system and you're collecting downtime, it's important to me to put it in buckets to identify one plant isn't going to be minor stops. One plant might be equipment failures, their number one bucket. One might be sanitation. So we don't want to send all corporate resources in to muddy up everything. We just want to send the corporate resources to help the plant that has mechanical failure. Hey, you need some help with your PMs and planning. And minor stops, it would be maybe center lining. And if it's sanitation, they're going to go after sanitation. So another dashboard, this is one of my favorites that Dan developed. I initially had him work on this one because we were trying to engage the maintenance teams in the plants, and this was the maintenance meeting. As you would click through the lines up top, For instance, if you're in Dayton and there's 6 lines, you click on line 1, and then you look at whatever date range you want to look at. You see if you're getting better or worse, and as you click on the Paretos, it'll go to each asset, and then you can look at not only the asset, but the number 1, 2, or 3 downtime events in that area. And then you can assign action items. You can create action items on the right side there. There's an action item register. There's Gantt charting, so you can track all these action items. And this is the day-to-day activity that will help you maintain those higher rates that you're hopefully achieving. And then it gets harder. It gets harder, and you just maintain, and you're working your butt off, and you're just maintaining.
One of the cool things about this chart, if you look at the trend, the blue lines are first shift, the red lines are second shift. There's a clear delineation between the two. So the big thing that we go after is, what's the difference? Is it the people? Is it maintenance? Is it people lying? I mean, the data's real. It's coming out of the machines. We don't have any unplanned downtime, or any planned downtime. Everything's downtime. Breaks, lunch, everything. We roll it all up. Because in our mind, everything's opportunity. So you have the opportunity to work through a break or work through a lunch. So if you choose not to, that's on the manager. But here, it gives you the opportunity to ask questions and get people together and say, okay, what are you guys doing different? This is you.
Okay. Well, you look like you were going to say something. Don't want to step on your toes. Yeah, so this is everything I do. And I'll go in and SEAL Team 6, one plant for like 2 months. And I'll work with the groups every day on the cadence of the meeting. You want to talk about your rate. Everybody from the plant manager down to the person on the floor needs to know what your theoretical max standard rate is. And we have that identified by SKU. And then we're just utilizing the data every day as a problem solving. We're getting everybody involved from maintenance, supply chain, QA. And going back to that screen that we were looking at before, instituting standardized problem solving methodology. PDCA is basically what we're using in that action item register. We're identifying trends of failure. We're coming up with a plan. We go out, we do it, and then we hopefully put it into play. Yeah, rinse and repeat, rip and reapply.
So basically, this has got people from all levels of the organization engaged in the process of continuous improvement. Since the teams are cross-functional, from everybody from team leads, we bring operators up when there's an issue. Everybody in the company is engaged in this. It's fully supported by our management. The daily cadence keeps people on focus. I'm not a fan of weekly meetings, especially when it's as important of getting people engaged. So the daily cadence helps. So what was the result of this? Well, if you remember this is last year, and this is one of our plants. This is a 6-month trend of one of our plants after we implemented the system. 112% improvement just by getting people engaged and getting people to understand what the true potential of the lines is and how to unlock that potential, as opposed to looking at what our corporate standards were. That's a lot of money. That's a plant. That's not a line. That's a plant. So this is why we do what we do. We've seen similar results. This one is the best. Obviously, I'm going to show the best. I'm not going to show the worst. But we've seen similar gains where we're breaking BOM standards at every plant. And we're at the point now where we're starting to level off. All the low-hanging fruit is gone. So now it's the incremental little things that are going to help us get better. But based on what he's done in creating the teams and getting the engagement, and based on the data that we have, we know that we're killing it and we can continue to get better. And it's a successful, project. And with that, I'll say questions, but I don't think we're supposed to have questions, because at the end we're going to have questions.
Thank you.